Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 154th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing great, Cameron. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here.
It's always great.
Yeah. I'll just point out again that you just don't ever give me a real answer nowadays, so nobody really knows how you're doing.
I'm just making life tough for you.
Yeah, that's
making you think.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, I'm unwilling to think, so I got to make you do it.
Okay. Ready for the NFL season to get going?
I'm ready, man. The
Chiefs going to go back to the Super Bowl? That's what I want to know.
Probably. I think so. They're I don't know. They got to recover from the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was rough.
Yeah.
But I think they've moved on. They're ready to prove everybody wrong. They got that revamped O-line. I think they'll be back.
No complacency after, losing the big one.
Yeah, got humbled a little bit.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, Kyle. Well, this is a very special episode. Any of our viewers and listeners now have seen by the thumbnail and the title and everything, we got to interview former Mizzou wide receiver Bud Sasser. But before we dive into all of that, we do have a few news items. And don't forget, of course, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's going to be the best way to watch this interview episode because we do have Bud's video up there. And don't forget, you can support the podcast directly on Patreon. And that's patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Right now, you can sign up at the $10 level or above to be entered into our fantasy football league that we're going to have this season. We've got a few people at that level already. We want to fill up a whole league's worth of teams. So head over to patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Sign up at the $10 level. That's your entry fee for the fantasy football league. There will be prizes, and it'll be worth your while. Kyle, before we get to the interview, we do have a big news item, and that is the hiring of a new athletic director for Mizzou sports. Desiree Reed-Francois.
I didn't know if you were going to try and attempt the name, but that was very good. Good job.
Piece of cake.
Yeah. This is big news. I think I really like this hire. I think this is very good for the future of Mizzou athletics. I think this hire brings some energy, some innovation to the program, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah. I kind of waited to form an opinion, kind of wanted to do a little bit of research and hear what other people are saying and everything, because this is a very vital role, obviously, within the athletics department. And I have to say I'm pretty excited. I think that it seems to me like President Choi and the Board of Curators kind of understand better what they need out of an athletic director. And I think they saw what Jim Sterk's strengths were and how they could use his strengths to further the athletic department. And they just went like, okay, let's find the very best version of that and go full steam ahead. Because, and I think that kind of, I'm speculating obviously, but it kind of makes sense that attitude would have been solidified around the hiring of Coach Drinkwitz when, as we've talked about before, as other people have talked about, Jim Sterk came back with a candidate that the curators weren't happy with, and I don't think the fans would have been happy with either, and they kind of went out and got their own guy, or at least kicked the tires on a few other options. And if they are comfortable doing that, and obviously they are, then, and they feel good about like the two revenue sports right now, basketball and football, where they are with their coaches. Some fans might disagree with that assessment on the basketball side of things, but I think that the people in charge are pretty happy with the coaches that they have on board right now. I see it as them kind of saying, let's raise as much money as we possibly can and throw that money at these programs and see what we get out of these coaches.
Yeah, I think the more we learn about the relationship with Sterk and maybe the Mizzou athletics department, I think the more we've learned that was probably they let him go. They decided
it wasn't as mutual as it first sounded.
No, and they decided that the department needed a different direction and a different leader. Some, like I said, a different energy, fundraising, and not that Cirque didn't do that, but I think that they are looking to upgrade fundraising and somebody that can navigate the changing landscape of college football and college athletics. And I think they made a good call and just deciding that it was time to go a different way. And I'm excited about that change.
Yeah, I am too. I think if for a school like Missouri, for a program like Missouri to be competitive at the highest level, specifically in football and basketball, they're going to have to take some chances and kind of be at the forefront of innovation sometimes. And I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing with this hire specifically. It's, regardless of hiring a woman athletic director, they went in a different direction than Missouri has with previous athletic directors. Just in the overall style of a different type of CEO, I think, a person with a different strengths, honestly. And again, I just go back to, they saw what worked really well with Jim Sturk, saw what didn't work as well, and just said, okay, we'll pick up the slack on those things that we want to be more in control of, and let's just go all in on somebody who is going to raise a bunch of money and just be the perfect CEO moving forward into whatever may come next for college football. And that's, SEC expansion, that's potentially, looking forward a few years, we might be talking about like the death of the NCAA. We're talking about paying players to some extent. Yeah. So making a change right now with the evolving landscape of college football and going with someone who you think is going to be at the cutting edge of all that kind of stuff makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see how fundraising goes, if that turns into, better facilities and more wins in those two sports in particular. But yeah, I'm very optimistic right now. I think the people in charge like where Missouri's at right now and are just kind of, like we said, leading up to the hire, kind of trying to strike while the iron is hot and take advantage of Mizzou sitting in a pretty decent spot.
Yeah, I'm happy as long as Coach Drink is happy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a good point. I think we knew Missouri was in a attractive situation where, I think the major sports, the coaches are pretty taken care of financially. I don't think that we'll be making any new hires, hopefully. And if it is, then hopefully it's because Coach Drink was so successful he had to go somewhere else. So I don't know that she's going to have to make any firings over the next 2 or 3 years, hopefully, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
She does have some pretty good experience. I kind of want to just go over some of the things that she has done in her career. The first notable position that she had was the compliance director at San Jose State. She was the associate AD at Santa Clara, Fresno State, San Francisco, and then Tennessee. So she has a history with Conto Martin. It sounds like they have a good relationship. She was the senior associate AD.
Some fans aren't so happy about that.
Yeah, probably not. Senior associate AD and the interim AD at Cincinnati. And then she oversaw the football program at Virginia Tech. And then most recently, she was the athletics director at UNLV. And,
sounds good to me.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah, she actually received a 4-year extension this spring at UNLV and then said, peace and out, see you later.
Yeah.
But she was well liked there. I think they really liked her leadership and were enjoying where the athletics department was headed. And, their fundraising was at an all-time high. And their football and basketball programs were not great, but, those are programs that are historically not great.
Yeah.
It's hard to win at UNLV.
Right.
For the most part. I guess their basketball team has been good in the past, but yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think it was published she'll be making $800,000 salary.
Sounds about right.
As the athletic director at Missouri, but that's what you got to do to play ball. And that resume, I think, lines up perfectly with what you would want. I think maybe some fans or commentators were hoping for a Power 5 athletic director experience People had talked about like Big 12 ADs. I don't know. I mean, I think of it more of like grabbing the up and comer more than the established Big 12 or Power 5 athletic director, maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to football coaches, I guess, in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she's like 48, so definitely pretty young.
Yeah. And I think, obviously, the leadership believes that they can make Missouri on par with any of the most attractive programs in the country. Like, that's how they have to believe in order to be making some of these moves. And if they kind of project that confidence and are making hires that they believe in, then everybody will buy in, and I think we'll be sitting in a pretty good spot in a few years.
Yep.
So that was really the biggest news item that we wanted to cover before jumping into the interview. There was some football camp and practice news. We're just going to combine that with any new stuff that we have for next week in the news section. Before we set up the interview, I do want to mention that we are full steam ahead into the first football game, which is very exciting. But that means if you have any Mizzou fan or relatives or friends that you might want to suggest the podcast to, this is a very good time to have them jump on, especially if they're fans of Mizzou back in 2013, because they'll really like this interview. And then we'll be covering the roster position by position next week and talking about football camp and some of our expectations for players. Then the following week, we'll be doing a breakdown of the entire schedule with our predictions, and we'll do our annual 7-on-7 football, Mizzou football draft competition between Kyle and I. And then we'll be previewing game 1, and then it'll be here. So now is the time to jump on board with the podcast so you're not confused about who anybody is or what our expectations are for the season. So when the football team, starts off 5-0, you'll be able to say you're here from the beginning.
You already knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Kyle, are we ready to set up this interview?
I think we're ready.
This is Bud Sasser. You know him, you love him. A member of the back-to-back SEC East champion Mizzou football teams in 2013 and 2014. This was a very fun interview. We got to reminisce. We got to hear some kind of inside info on recruiting and the transition to the SEC. We talked about all kinds of stuff, and we caught up with what he's doing now. I loved it. I think the listeners will really enjoy it, and maybe we'll have Bud on another time.
Yeah, Bud's such a sharp guy, a good guy with such a promising future with all the stuff he's doing. So it was great to catch up with him and hear what he's doing.
So without further ado, here is Bud Sasser. Here we are with Bud Sasser. Thanks, Bud, for coming on the podcast with us.
Thanks for having me, you guys. I'm looking forward to the conversation and just to hear you guys' insight on some Missouri sports.
Oh, yeah. That's what we're all about. So you're back in Columbia now. Will we be seeing you on some Saturdays at Fro Field?
Yeah, I look forward to it. Hopefully, do y'all have some season tickets? Because if you don't,
we do not. Maybe we could go in together and get some season tickets.
We'll be in the cheap seats.
Hey, exactly, man. But yeah, hopefully I can see you guys at the game. I'll be attending for sure.
Nice.
I'm not sure exactly which ones, but I'm quite positive I'll be at each home game.
Awesome.
So I look forward to it. Look forward to the tailgates and being able to get back out there with some of the Mizzou folks.
Well, I don't know if you remember this. You probably do because it's probably a very meaningful time in your life when you played on a church basketball league with the three of us here in Springfield a few years back. So that was like the first time we interacted. And unfortunately, there was like a good side and a bad side. On the bad end, you were only able to play one game with us. But then on the plus side is we got to say we were the only team in that league to lose a player to the NFL. So,
hey, exactly, man. It was that was a great time. I I just remember, love the jerseys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I still have the shirt today. I'll still randomly wear it around. So
Nice.
yeah, no, it's pretty. For those who don't know which jersey we're talking about, we had the team name was POTUS. I rocked the 45. No, I did not rock the 45. I rocked the 44.
There you go.
Yeah.
We each picked a president to have as our number and the name on the back of the jersey. That was fun.
Yeah.
There was
no controversy there, but I did rock the 44 though.
Yeah.
There was a moment in that game where I guess producer Cameron's brother was like our coach for that game or something, and he was picking and choosing who was playing. And I remember this pivotal moment in the game. Game was on the line. There's probably a couple minutes left, and for whatever reason, Cam's brother like puts me in the game, and I see you on the bench. I'm just like, what? Why is Bud on the bench right now?
I was like, all right, you're fired.
And yeah, I think we fired him after that game, rightfully so. But and of course, knowing I should not have been in the game at that point, I think I shoot a 3 and miss, in a pivotal moment. And I just remember you telling me like, just keep shooting, man. And so you were being a good teammate. So that'll stick with me.
Hey, just sometimes you just gotta say the right thing, man. Hey, just gotta say the right thing, uplift your teammates.
There you go.
All right, so getting into some of this football talk, we focus a lot on recruiting on this podcast. So anytime we get the opportunity to talk to a former player just about the recruiting process and all that kind of stuff, it's super interesting, and a lot of our listeners will find it pretty interesting. So rewinding the clock back to your high school days, can you kind of give us some insight into the recruiting process from a player's perspective? When did it really kick off for you? Who were some of those first schools that reached out? And then how did that kind of progress?
So I think it's different for everybody, man. Everybody's experience is so different. Mine was just, my junior year is really when it kind of took off. I remember the first scholarship letter coming in the mail. It was from Tulsa, University of Tulsa. And, I just, like, even to this day, I didn't go there, didn't have plans on going there. But, I'll always remember that moment of just, getting your first one. And, it was a pretty sweet deal. So then to kind of get to a point where, they're kind of coming in, pretty consistently after that, it was also a pretty neat experience because, I played at Denton Ryan High School. So it's a powerhouse for football in Texas. So they're actually just coming off a state championship from last year. So shout out to Denton Ryan. Hopefully, you can run it back again this year. So all that to say, it is just a neat experience. And then you're practicing in front of, all of these college coaches. It's the same as like what gave me that type of experience when I got to Mizzou. And then you have NFL scouts there. So it was a pretty neat experience, and really it shows you just how big the program was in high school that I was a part of. That's what I realized was just the fact that I got that same experience in high school that for the first time some people might have gotten in college. So, but everybody, at the end of the day, my visit to Mizzou, it was just, it was good. It was my mom and one of my sisters came along with me. It was actually the first visit that I took with anybody, like as far as like a parent or guardian or sibling. My other visits, I just went on by myself. So not knowing, I'm a first generation college graduate. So for us, it was just like, okay, yeah, I guess you're supposed to go just get on a plane and go to this school and just see if you like it. Tell me about it when you get back, and kind of things like that. And but when it came to Mizzou, my family wanted to come and they loved it. And honestly, because they loved it, I knew it was going to be a good spot for me. Like I had a great time, don't get me wrong. And some of my teammates at that point they're amazing people still to this day. So it made it pretty easy for me to just to like, yeah, let's do it here, even though I don't like the cold, but let's do it here.
Did you grow up a fan of any home state schools? Like, were you a
UT.
big? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Texas. I mean, I was every day in practice throwing up the hook 'em horns, and it was just man. So I really thought I was going. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that was where I was gonna be. Just didn't work out. It got to a point where they actually called me and told me where I was on their kind of recruiting board, and they let it. They told me just verbatim, like, "Hey, there is another guy who happened to be a top receiver in the country at that time." And they're just like, if he decides to come here, that's where that last scholarship is going. We just have to be honest with you. And so that's what we're waiting on. And that guy ended up going there, and that was it. So I just took it for what it was and just moved on, man. I just, didn't really care for him since. So.
Well, that's a perfect example of the kind of thing that we always speculate about as like fans. And we always know that there's like, non-committable offers, and like there's guys ahead of other guys on certain schools' lists, and if they take this spot, then they're gonna sometimes players that have already committed get cut loose because or they get encouraged to look at other opportunities because another guy commits. So it is kind of just a reminder for the fans that like this is not always just the player deciding where they want to go and that's it. Like the school has to actually have a spot for you.
Very true. I mean, at the end of the day, there's only so many scholarships, and they're going to move mountains for the number one player in the state. Like, yeah. And that's no shade to any school. I mean, I'm talking about my experience. I'm not even talking about just like Mizzou, just my experience in general. Like, at the end of the day, that's just what it is. That there's a ranking system. There's their recruiting board, and it's like getting your lottery pick. Even if it was late, you have to make room and you have to figure it out. So that's the that's just the business of sport. And I think the quicker you're able to learn that, you'll be able to maneuver this space as an athlete a little bit more, less, I guess you can say, emotionally attached.
Mm-hmm. So when you came to Mizzou, we were still a Big 12 school. So what was that like to, play against Texas, play against that team that you rooted for your whole life?
Yeah, I mean, it was still pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. They came out in the icy white uniform, all white, and it was just surreal, to be honest, because it was the first time I was on the field, like playing against Texas. Like this is pretty neat.
Yeah.
And just such a powerhouse, program, and a nationally wide known program. It's hard to just not think about like, dang, that's pretty sweet. But at that time I was still barely playing, so I was just kind of watching from afar.
What was it like making that transition, or just like from the whole team's perspective, making that transition to the SEC from a player's point of view?
Seeing how we ended up my last 2 years, that first year when we initially transitioned, I think everyone was just kind of like how I was when we first played UT. I think there was a lot of people on the team just excited to be in these types of stadiums, these historical stadiums, playing against Tennessee or playing in the swamp against Florida, playing against Bama. Like, that's a different vibe. If you've never played those teams before for the first time, and then it's huge too, because it was the first time, I think it was the first time Alabama came to play in Columbia. So like that, there's a whole different vibe to that type of game.
Oh yeah.
Not even so much about like, hey, here's the game plan. Initially, here's the game plan. It is, okay, there's a lot of stuff going on, trying to just keep a bunch of guys focused on the actual game. I think that was a little bit of a challenge that first year. So I did see a little bit of that, and it was just, everything was new, and everyone's just trying to get adjusted, which at the end of the day, it sucks for the senior group, but that's just what it was. And then the next year is like, okay, you win some games here, you're going to play in the big time bowls or play
Right.
in the national championship game. So this is the chance, and we had the team to do it. So
Yeah, that first SEC year, there was a lot of injuries. Obviously, James Franklin got hurt. There were some offensive line injuries. We did find one very interesting game for you in particular, though, which was the Vanderbilt game, where you had a very interesting stat line. One reception for 101 yards and a touchdown, because you got credit for receiving yards for picking up a fumble and running it like 16 yards. So that's kind of a unique stat line.
People sleep on my stats, man. They sleep on
Yeah, you had like an 80-something yard touchdown in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a pretty cool moment. I didn't even know about like that process until after the game. It's like, no one is ever going to do that. I just want y'all to know. So that is a very slept on line or stat line.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was a cool moment. That was my first. Matter of fact, that was my first college touchdown. So my mom actually has that framed at home. So
nice.
Yeah, that was a great moment for me.
You mentioned that 2012 season. A lot of those players were still there the next season whenever you were really good. Did you kind of know, like, we've got a lot of talent here, but we're just kind of dealing with injuries, and like what was kind of the thought in the locker room when in that 2012 season?
I mean, like I mentioned, it's just a lot to learn. You're still trying to, you got guys who were bought in, some who aren't, trying to mesh the team and get it right. And this is every year. So this isn't any surprise. Every year you have this and you just have to try to make it work. So that year, I think it just took too long for us to make it work with the amount of injuries that y'all have just brought up. Like, it was just everywhere. Everybody was injured. We had a really, really hard training camp that right before that season. I'm not going to lie. We had that summer, it was turned up on us. It was like everybody was just trying to adjust to being in this new space, and it's like, okay, let's get this stuff figured out.
Everybody was probably feeling pressure.
Yeah, for sure. And so then next thing you know, hamstrings getting blown out, ACLs, and but that was a learning curve for staff as well, and just a better way of approaching the game. Which at the end of the day, I believe Coach Ivy was the strength and conditioning coach. Credits to him, makes the proper adjustments. I think the very next year actually ends up winning the national, or getting national recognition for the strength and conditioning coaches, kind of like this big time award.
Yeah.
And I give so much credit to him because he never stops. He never stopped learning. He never stopped trying to be the absolute best. And a lot of credit to those seasons that kind of pushed Mizzou on up the pedestal there. I give it to Pat Ivy for sure. Dr. Coach Ivy on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You want to jump in with 2013?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some pretty big moments for you individually in that season. Kind of wanted to take a little drive down memory lane and thinking of a couple of just notable moments from that 2013 season. One of the first things that comes to mind was that game against Florida. You're 6-0. James Franklin gets hurt in the game before that against Georgia. It's Matty Mock's first start, and obviously it looked like Florida was thinking you guys might come out and just try to be a little bit conservative with a new quarterback, but you guys score in 2 plays on the first drive of the game, and obviously you catch a 20-yard touchdown on the second play of the game. What were the expectations for that game? Were you guys thinking that you might? Did you know you're going to be that aggressive, or what was the game plan?
Yeah, I can tell you now, that whole year before the season started, we knew that this was the team. We just knew. It was the way even people competed in practice, competed hard, but we also made sure, it wasn't like low blows or some of those blindsided hits. It was just kind of like and it was the players. Like, it wasn't the coach telling them not to do it. It was the players. So the way that Coach Pinkel led his team, he was more like a GM, and let the coaching staff coach, but also let the players lead the team. And that year it was just very like players are just like, look, like, we have healthy people. Let's keep it that way, because the year before we knew we had the talent. Everybody was just hurt. So after going through that season, it's like, we need to make sure we make it to the season. We do that, we know we can be special. And then I think really through the first game, the first 2 drives were a little shaky. I don't remember the exact team we were playing, maybe Western Illinois or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Murray State, maybe?
Yeah. Was it Murray State?
Murray State was the next season, I think. No, you got it. Murray State. Murray State.
Okay, yeah, Murray State. Okay, so that it took us maybe 2 drives to like, okay, calm down, and then it's like, look, we know how good we are. Mm-hmm. We really, really do, and everybody knew it, and so we just kind of turned it up from there, and we made sure each week, literally every practice, it was, we have to just be better than we were yesterday, and that was the true mentality. It was like, if we won by 30. It didn't matter. We didn't look at necessarily that piece. It was a lot of the team actually studied the real stat lines that make the difference in a game. What was our third down conversion rate? And I mean, how many turnovers did we force? Just kind of like, as far as down and distance, like, what positions were we putting ourselves in the most? And red zone, like, how did we convert in the red zone?
Were there any players in particular that were like spearheading that? I mean, I imagine James Franklin was probably one of the leaders, or I don't know. Help me out.
He was, but I mean, this was the beautiful thing about that team, man. It was so many people on the same accord, like going through the same things that I'm talking about. It was like, look, as an offense, we're practicing. I mean, O-line is talking about it. Hey, let's run this play back, repeat, or we call it shotgun, whatever. Like, let's do it again. And it was just, everybody wanted to be better. Okay, like, we see, cause we knew how good we were. It was like, if we can actually be better than what we were last week, it's going to be crazy come the end of the season. So to get, long-winded answer.
No, I like it.
It's great.
To get to the point of the Florida game, when Maddie came in, it was like, Maddie, all you have to do is just hike the ball. Just hike it. At that point, if you hand it off, there's people who know what to do with it.
Yeah.
If you throw it, you have honestly 8 people in the room that can catch the ball and make a play. We actually had more than that, but 8 people, 8 to 10 receivers were playing. We had about 14, 15 in the room. And all those guys that were in that room could play ball. Not gonna lie.
That makes a lot of sense.
At least 10 of the guys could go start somewhere else on another SEC team.
Yeah. From a fan's perspective, I remember thinking, being a little nervous just with a new quarterback coming in, and with the stakes being so high. Like, clearly this team had something special going, and I just remember being so happy whenever you guys came out aggressive and scored in 2 plays. That was pretty amazing. But fun game.
No one thought twice. It was just like, look, hey, Maddie, you're in. Like, this is what it is.
Next man up.
This is what it is. Yeah. Next man up. Let's go.
Okay, so back it up 1 week to the Georgia game. That's obviously like probably that and maybe like the Texas A&M win at the end of the season are like the 2 marquee wins probably from that season, in my opinion. When James Franklin went down, and okay, so specifically we need to talk about the trick play, the double pass. What's it called?
Colt 45?
Yes.
Yeah,
is that something that you guys had in your bag of plays that you knew you could go to like in a pivotal moment? Is that something that you had practiced specifically for the Georgia game? Or was that...
we practiced that play since the summertime. And it was just always like just a play that we never knew when we were going to use. Maybe it was going to be like a bowl game trick play, but we practiced it every week, like every week.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if it was every practice, but I know for a fact it was every week we practiced that play. So it was plenty of practices that we just did that play.
Are you getting some butterflies when that play is called in? Are you thinking like, okay, now I really gotta, this is my play to really like make something happen here?
To be honest, no, because it was like we practiced it so many times. It wasn't even like it wasn't a second thought. Coach Hill was in the huddle. He's getting the message from upstairs from Coach Henson at that time. And it was like we're both out there in the world doing great things, coaching at A&M and the Chiefs and everything. So it was just a call, and it was like, hey, bud, are you ready to throw? Like, yeah. I've been waiting to throw that ball like for all year long. I was just like, when are we actually going to run the play? And it never really made sense to actually run it. So at this point, as soon as he said it, everybody's like, yeah, this is it. Let's go. Because we've practiced it so many times. It's like, finally, we get to actually run the play.
It's nearly a 50-yard touchdown pass. I mean,
Yeah.
You threw a perfect ball.
Yeah, man. They'll talk about, the spin on it. It wasn't too tight, but, hey, it got the job done.
Absolutely. Obviously, you guys ended up losing to South Carolina that season in a heartbreaker, but on the whole season, that South Carolina game didn't really like loom that large as far as like the standings and everything. You guys still won the East. That was an awesome game. I was there. I was at Furrow Field that day or that night, and when Henry Josie like broke that run to kind of seal the deal, obviously that's like an amazing Mizzou football memory, and then the fans stormed the field and everything. So that South Carolina game didn't stop you guys from playing for playing on the biggest stages in college football. Was it known by the team? Was anybody talking about the fact that if you could knock off Auburn, you'd be in the national championship game?
Yes. I mean, but we tried not to talk too much about it because we really didn't know at the time, like how that new college football playoff setup was going to be. But everybody was kind of thinking it, like at least try to put yourself in the best position, because you just never know. We're an SEC team. It's hard to expect us just to not be in it, if we were to come out of this game. And not at that point, it wasn't if we were to come out of this game. It's like, hey, let's go win this game.
Yeah.
We're 9 times out of 10 playing for a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
But we also that year, we didn't think too far ahead. We really did focus on the Auburn game.
Mm-hmm. Transitioning then to 2014, so then obviously you lost some key starters on offense, the biggest of which was probably Doriel, because he was going to be the de facto number one wide receiver going into 2014. How did his departure affect just like the wide receiver room, and how did you just kind of feel like, okay, now I got to step up and be the number one guy?
Oh man, this is always a great topic. It's I've never looked at myself as someone's second team guy, and that's just me.
Yeah.
And I laugh at this because this was, I don't know if you can go back to right before the season started. I mean, the reporter, media staff, whatever, asked me the same question, just about like, hey, the last year's, receiving core that had all the yards and touchdowns are now gone. Are you guys worried that you won't be able to step into their shoes? And it's like, no, not at all. And this is, again, no shade, Doriel's a hell of a talent. But I knew what I had, and I knew what I brought to the table, and I knew that what you guys have me on here for now, I already knew I had that. I just hadn't had the chance to display it. So I've just been waiting my turn. And also to anybody listening, any recruits or players now, wait it out. Like, bite the bullet. Sometimes you're not playing that first year or that second year, and you're getting a little bit of it that third year. That whole process of not being able to like be the starter like I knew I could have been and probably should have been. But that taught me patience and the ability to persevere, the ability to really take advantage of my moments. Because it's, that whole process really just lit a fire under me, because I just felt like there was no way I should be on this sideline, but I am. So to answer your question, we weren't worried at all. I wasn't worried. I knew that if there was anywhere close to the same amount of footballs being thrown in the air, I would most likely bring more of them down, and I would probably have more yards.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, and touchdowns.
No, I think you in particular, I think surprised some people that season. Obviously, you didn't surprise yourself, but 77 receptions for 1,003 yards and 12 touchdowns. That was tops across for the team. Every category, you were the number one wide receiver, obviously, and so you definitely showed up and produced for that season, and it was so fun to watch. And I mean, I think that's definitely a fan perspective that doesn't get that hopefully the players don't have, and obviously you didn't, and that's why you were able to be so successful. If you have players that are like, oh no, what are we going to do now? Like, oh, I have to step up, then that's just not going to work out.
Yeah, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
Probably gonna, or not. I shouldn't just say lose, but that person who's saying that, like, right. Oh, I mean, I guess it has to be me. You're gonna do terrible.
Right.
And the thing is just, especially at that point, it's in you. I like to see, because I don't, I haven't seen it be done any other way.
Yeah.
The people that I've seen that have gone out there and performed when it's time for them to perform, it's in them.
Mm-hmm.
And, it can't be something that someone just does the hoorah speech to you and then you go out and do it. You don't need that. And it's those who I know, the Marcus Murphys of the world, the Marcus Goldens, the Shane Rays, the EJ Gaines, the Henry Josies. Henry Josie could turn that thing on like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And then just go back to just hanging out and chilling with you and just, laughing it up. And but there are just some guys who had that type of switch that it's just in them, and there's nothing you can do about it, really. You just gotta, try to compete and do your best to, just be on the field with them.
It seems like you guys had a whole lot of them on those two back-to-back SEC East champion seasons.
Yes. 100%. Coney Ely as well. I don't want to leave anybody out, but my goodness, we really did have a lot of players who also played their role.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, like, even if they weren't the guy that's going to go to the NFL, we had a lot of guys on that team, 2013 especially, who knew the next level is not for them. However, this is their last shot. And they played in practice like they were going to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And because the guys that was their last year and that are probably leaving and getting drafted and all that stuff, the level of competition was too high for, if you wanted to actually play a down in a game, you were going to have to compete every day to get any sort of playing time. And so that's how deep that team was. And we were able to stay healthy, fortunately, unfortunately at the quarterback position at a point in time. But again, it was just next man up. So
clearly there's a lot more than just talent that goes into a great team like that. And clearly there's a lot of mental toughness that I think those players that you guys showed. And obviously that 2014 season didn't get started off in the greatest way with that loss to against Indiana, but I mean, I feel like you guys showed a lot of grit and mental toughness, kind of bouncing back from that loss, and obviously going on to win the SEC East that year. But I mean, what was it like? I mean, what was the locker room like after that loss?
To be honest, I think we just knew, like, there's really a formula to getting to the championship game. You know, win the East.
Mm.
That's it. And, you know, at least from, and I don't know if it's changed, but it's like, out of the East teams, if you are leading the East with competing against the other East teams, you're going to be the one to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that Indiana game hurt, but that hurt ranking.
Right. Yeah.
That didn't hurt our chances. And so it's like, hey, we can either whine about this loss against Indiana, or we can kind of step. Luckily, we experienced the South Carolina game the year before, where that one was an East game.
Right.
So that we knew what it took to then, like, hey, we have to win really the next, I think it was like 3 or 4 games. But we also took it 1 week at a time. So that's what we did with Indiana. It's like, look, we need to get back on a nice streak, kind of get that ranking back a little bit lower or higher, I guess, and just take it week by week, work on getting better week by week. What did we do? Just piss poor in this game to lose to Indiana? And how can we, you know, avoid that moving forward? And I think I think that year we did a decent job of it. We did a hell of a job defensively.
Yeah.
But offensively, you know, it was always a third and fourth quarter kind of finally turn up type thing for the offense.
I wanted to ask, obviously from a wide receiver's point of view, you played a lot of snaps with 2 different quarterbacks. Just from like a gameplay perspective, literally the person throwing you the ball being a different person, how different was it catching passes from Franklin versus Mock?
Man, it was different. One, if you just look at not necessarily the trajectory of the ball, but just the spin on James Franklin ball and a Matty Mock ball, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the challenge. But as far as just, and, you know, they're different players. You know, Matty was not a player who wanted to just, or QB who wanted to sit in the pocket and just toss the ball around. He wanted to throw downfield for sure, but he, you know, he's going to take off running.
Right.
And so, which is fine because that was his playing style. And he wants to throw it on the run, sling it to the right, sling it to the left, throw it way back cross field, whatever it may be. But James was a little bit more kind of pre-snap. Not, I know exactly where I'm going because this is what I have to do. It was, we know what this defense is in, and we all had communication like signs as a receiving core and running back core to let him know what's actually happening if he didn't already.
Mm-hmm.
So pre-snap, it's like, hey, they're dropping to cover 3. We already know this. If we have the deep dropouts on the outside, one of those guys are getting the ball because the cornerbacks are, you know, bailing out, right? It's an easy throw, easy about 15 yards catch, you know. With Matty, that wasn't necessarily the thought process. Doesn't mean one was better than the other. It just means he's playing this game like he's all out having fun. Like, I'm playing, I'm ready to whatever happens in front of me, I'm responding, and I'm gonna make something happen. And that's a different, you know, way of like running your routes, timing, all those types of things. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it seemed like that 2014 season, you in particular made a lot of big plays by just like coming back to the ball, or coming back, just making yourself open to Matty when he would kind of roll out, or he would buy some time and you would just kind of float into this open spot and he would find you.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of had to with Matty because that's just how he played. And at the end of the day, look, we're all trying to make something happen. We're trying to win the games. and trying to get the ball too as a receiver. Like, to be honest, I'm trying to get this ball. So
Right.
however you're throwing it, I can either just let it get deflected or whatever and complain about it, or I got to go make something happen.
Kyle, I've got a question about camp. If you have anything else about like those seasons in particular.
Go ahead.
So the football team right now is in preseason camp, doing real practices. We interviewed another former wide receiver, Cam Chancey, last year on the podcast, and he told us a camp story about him just getting absolutely destroyed by Sheldon Richardson on one play where you guys ran the same play twice in a row, so the defense knew what was coming, and then so he just got completely destroyed. I was wondering if you had any fun camp memories or stories, since that's what the football team is doing right now.
Fun camp stories.
Putting you on the spot.
Probably not a lot of fun happening in camp.
Yeah, was it even fun? Was it kind of miserable?
I was just kind of thinking of, there's one that I think that my teammates will really, it might be something for, LaDamian and Michael Sam to tell at practice. It was such a funny moment for us as a team. It was serious for them, but it's funny for us. Because that's you putting me on the spot. But another one would have to be, I don't know. We had so many good moments, without saying too much. I guess it's just we had a lot of good moments. And camp, it's just a grind, and it's funny moments when people are ready to quit, and they don't, but they're ready to quit, or they talk about quitting and all this stuff. Just all the emotions coming out, being pissed off, but they just keep going. I don't know, man. There's just too many. There's too many that you're just trying. I'm just thinking about just practice in general, and there could be just a funny conversation between coach and player that pops in my mind. Any fights on the team, anything that happened. It was just so many things were just funny in hindsight, and a lot of it that the people I'm talking, great friends today, brotherhood still. It was just funny moments, in the heat of the moment. It's all tense, but 2 minutes afterwards, everyone's laughing about it. So,
speaking of,
I don't have an exact one. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't need you to throw anybody under the bus.
Speaking of Cam Chancey, he actually mentioned the exact same thing that you said about Gary Pinkel, with him kind of taking the CEO approach and letting the position coaches and the players kind of run practice or whatever it is. But what was it like playing for Gary Pinkel? Obviously, he's kind of a Mizzou legend, and you had the opportunity to get to play for him. What was that like?
I mean, at the end of the day, it was, he was a guy that just gave people the opportunity, such as his coaching staff, to coach. And, he didn't need to know what my exact route was going to be, because in his mind, I don't know if it was in his mind, but from my perspective, he's expecting you to know what you're supposed to have to do. And he's expecting your coaches to know that, do you know what he's supposed to be doing? Is he doing it correct? If not, let's correct it. And that's very on a small scale.
Mm-hmm.
On a grand scheme of things, he's watching everything. So he does know, but he's also putting it on his staff to correct things. And what I really loved about it was the seniors are kind of the leadership of the team. And to see a senior group step up and truly lead a team, I think that's special. And I got the chance to see that in 2013 for the first time, when it wasn't just 2 or 3 seniors. It wasn't just 4 seniors. It was, if we had 30 seniors, 27 of them were doing the best that they absolutely could to make that team as best as we could possibly be. And I credit that to the way that he approached leadership for football teams. And it wasn't always just seniors. Like, of course you got your younger guys who are stepping in there from time to time to try to lead, but really putting that weight on the senior group, it just makes it a little bit more special, because you feel like you're almost doing it for the seniors. And there's so many of those guys who really won't play another down. And just to make those moments special, it's like it's pretty neat. So
that's awesome. Speaking of playing another down, you got drafted by the St. Louis Rams in the 6th round. Yeah. And of course, Kyle and I remember that happening because we pay attention to every Mizzou player that even might be drafted every NFL draft. So just what was that like? And then obviously you had a super unique situation where you actually weren't able to play for him because of an underlying health issue that, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't even know about until it was discovered during that process, right?
Yeah. So, it's funny because moving around, I'll tell you the first part actually first, is just the experience of being drafted. It was pretty neat to get the phone call and to know what is actually on the other line of the phone call. I've watched it my whole life. You just never know what the actual conversation is. And, it was Les Snead on there, just chopping it up with me for a quick minute, just asking me how I was doing. And just, no, matter of fact, the first call, I'll tell you that, the first call was actually Ray Sherman, who was the receiver coach for the St. Louis Rams at the time. And he called me, and I heard this call a couple of times that day on that third day of the draft. It was, hey, we want you. We don't know if we can get you in the 6th round, though. We're trying to get it figured out. We may run out of draft picks or whatever, but people were pushing for me. So I didn't know that.
So a couple other teams had said that to you?
Yeah, I had calls second day, third day, just about like, hey, we're trying to get this figured out. And, you're one of our top receivers on our board. But, in reality, if you look at some of these teams' boards, some of them are not looking to draft a receiver yet. Like, that's just what it is.
Right.
And so for you to really be on somebody's board and they're calling you, it's a great thing. It's a great feeling. So after that, took maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. I get a call again, and it's Les Snead with the Rams, and it's the Rams GM, or not you guys, but your listeners. And he was just, asking me, how I was doing. Was I watching the TV? Was I watching the draft? And he's like, hey, we're gonna take you with our next pick here in the 6th round. I was like, all right, great. He was like, basically, are you ready to work and excited about being a Ram? Like, yeah. So he's like, all right, well, come ready to work. And then he put me on the phone with Jeff Fisher. Got a chance to talk with him a quick minute, and kind of similar conversation. And then that was it, man. You hang up the phone, and 2 or 3 picks later, St. Louis Rams pick is in. Then it's me. So it's, it's like, man, it's crazy. So that was a amazing moment I got to experience with my family. And, it was just it was a great time. Great time. But to the unique situation, what I was bringing up was, as we were moving here, like I still have all like my documents and stuff like that of just different reports. And it's always unique, man, how life works, because, I can go through all of these things and it can tell you like whether it's low risk or this, this man is qualified to play, or all of these different doctors kind of saying yes. And what you hear on the TV and what you see, like, that comes out all over social media and just kind of blasted across the country. That part sucks. So it's like, you're kind of labeled that.
Right.
But in reality, here's what's actually going on behind the scenes. And then it became just don't go there with that player. So it just kind of,
The team saw it as like just a liability thing for them.
that's it.
Yeah.
It became a legal issue. And, for those who, that's the business of sport.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that situation happened. I just got the short end of the stick. I was told I was getting the short end of the stick, and I just got to live with it. So,
and we got to play basketball with you here in Springfield because of it.
Yeah, man. So that's kind of how it panned out.
Yeah.
Well, the Rams actually then hired you as their external football affairs coordinator after that. How was that? What was going into that role?
At that time, I'm glad I experienced it because I needed to actually learn what it was like to be in that type of setting. Because to be honest, I had worked before, but like high school jobs, like a Subway job or worked in a Goodyear tire shop, like this. I had never worked in an office setting. So learning just office etiquette, just all of these different things, that one, it made me grow really, really fast. I clearly was not prepared to be in that setting. But it taught me so much about myself. It taught me about just, how those things operate in the front office, just what people are really looking for, how people thrive in those spaces, and how people fall to the wayside, in those spaces as well. So shout out to Kyle Eversgerd, who helped me develop in that position. He stayed patient with me because he understood, just kind of some of the things I was just going through. Because at that point it was very difficult for me, just because I'm going to work, but the music and the bass is blasting from right below me, and it's in the weight room, and the team's in there just doing their thing, and I'm typing at my desk, like writing to, no offense to the high school coaches, but I was writing to the high school coaches about, some things that we're going to give away. And at the time, it wasn't where I wanted to be mentally or physically. So, it was just tough. I didn't want to go to the practices or nothing, man. So, but the cool thing that I was doing, honestly, was going out to these games and being able to speak to high school students and encourage them, hand out checks with play 60, and just being able to provide kind of a ambassador-esque role for the Rams, even at the football games. At halftime, I'm not sure if y'all were at the games, but there would be like the youth league playing at halftime. Like,
sure, yeah.
I was kind of running the games out there at halftime, which was, great, because at the end of the day, with everything that was happening to me, I also got to see these kids like just love the fact that they were playing at the Dome, in front of the thousands of fans who, even if the game was only 10 minutes, but like they just loved it. And just to see them play and fans start cheering for a kid, turning the corner and going for 20 yards, like that was a great feeling, just to be able to, be there to support them in that. And so I did learn a lot, and I did have a chance to really experience what it was like to see the business side of sports, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Well, you haven't stopped giving back to the community. You've got the Sasser Nation Foundation. You want to tell us and our listeners, of course, kind of what you've been doing with that and how that came about, and what you're all about there?
Yeah, 100%. So always knew I wanted to give back. It was something that I've done. I did it while I was in school. It wasn't, like a financial type of giving back, but I would go do community service, did the Big Brother, Big Sister program. things like that. So once this time came, I just wanted to do some of the things that I went through as a kid. So, I gave backpacks and school supplies and the haircuts and partnered with barbershops there and back in my hometown in Denton, Texas. The reason being because I was in the line to get the supplies, and I knew that, hey, with my name and at that time the NFL brand behind me, like I can bring these supplies, I can bring the funding or whatever it may be to the community to get them, the things that they need to start school off and feel good about having what they need in order to start, that new school year. And then from there, it kind of just grew. It was just like, I want to be able to get back to some of the high school seniors who were heading off to college. And it's interesting that you brought up Cam Chancey because he was a part of the reason why I thought of things like this. And he doesn't even know this. But him, Eric Laurent, and a few other guys that were on our squad that were walk-on guys. And to see them come out with a good attitude every day and truly just compete, have fun, but also were just taking the damage, but also not like they weren't playing on Saturdays at that time. So to see them still want to go through all of that and have to pay for school and have to pay to basically be out there, that I just appreciated it. And when it made me think about where I felt like I could make the biggest impact, it was, those high school students who didn't have a full ride like I did. Like, man, that's a lot of money for one that you're going to have to be paying. And who knows what you're going to want to participate in or enjoy in college. But if you're, shackled down by, lack of funds, you don't really get to enjoy your college experience. So I just wanted to start, basically giving or granting scholarships to high school seniors in Denton ISD so that, I can help in any way possible, really just financially, just to help them, get an opportunity that maybe they wouldn't have had without the scholarship. So that's kind of what I've been doing since 2017. And to be able to see, honestly, my first graduate back in May, Jacqueline Willis, graduated from Spelman College, to be able to see that, like, at that point in time, like, happen, like, it's amazing, man. And it's just like, that it's with everything with sport, like that, it doesn't even amount to how you can truly change somebody's trajectory. Not saying that it was all me by any means, but that's why I keep trying to do it, because I want to grow it and hopefully one day be able to give someone a full ride to college just from my foundation. So, at the end of the day, that means a lot to me, because I want someone to be able to get out there and just enjoy college and what it can do for you like it did for me.
That's so great to hear about the difference you're making in so many people's lives. And you earned the Denton's Juneteenth Hometown Hero Award as well for your contributions. And I was just wondering if there was a place where Mizzou fans could help donate to support your cause, or if there's anywhere that if Mizzou fans are wanting to help out with that, is there something they can do?
Yeah, so you can actually go to sassernation.com, and right on the home page, you'll see the main link that just says donate here. It's green for the money. It's green for the money. But it is, but honestly, and there's also like a donate button right up on the top right, I believe. So it's just an option, for you to go there, or you can make the check out to Sasser Nation Foundation. Address is in the website as well. So it's just, man, or just hit me up on social media. I'll be happy to send you directly there, or send you a link if it's not provided in the description below of this video.
It'll be there.
All right, good deal. So, but yeah, just let me know. And but there's plenty of ways. You can message on Sasser Nation Foundation, Facebook, Instagram, my Instagram, or my Facebook, my Twitter, you name it. So all types of ways.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely get the word out on that. Before we let you go, was there anything when you were thinking about coming on the show that you thought, oh, there's this one thing that maybe they'll ask about that I would just love to talk about from your Mizzou playing days, or just anything interesting that we didn't touch on that you maybe were hoping we would have?
No, I was actually pretty interested in what you guys would ask me, because I sometimes I like to ask what I'm going to be asked.
Mm-hmm.
But it is rare that I do that actually, but I'm always curious of what I'm going to be asked. So this time I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if y'all were going to drill me with some recruiting questions or what's currently on staff now or anything like that. So I was a little unclear, but yeah, man, I think, you guys are doing a great job. Conversations are great. It's, just seems like y'all are right at home, just kind of doing just friends, just doing a show, and it's genuine. And so that makes it pretty good.
That's what we're going for. Well, it really seems like, obviously, the way you talk about everything, you've got such a good attitude in everything that you've got going on, even going back to playing days and continuing to be involved and help people. So thank you so much for coming on the show with us. We really appreciate it. I really think our listeners and viewers are going to love it.
Hey, I appreciate it as well. And make sure you guys actually follow me on Twitter, man. These next 3 years, I'm actually attending the University of Missouri Law School. So I will be putting some information out there about NIL and just some of the legal side of sports, and just sports and entertainment and things like that. So I do want to keep people updated in that respect. So just to have another avenue to hear about sports, follow me there on Twitter.
That's at Bud Sasser 21 on Twitter, right?
Correct.
Okay. We'll send people your way. Well, thanks for coming on with us. We really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thank y'all so much.
All right. That was our interview with Bud Sasser. Very fun. I had a smile on my face the entire time when he was talking about the 2013 and 2014 teams. That's just such a classic time in recent years for Mizzou football. Just so fun. I could talk about those 2 seasons for 3 more hours. I could go game by game and not get tired of it. So I'm glad he indulged us there, gave us some inside info on some stuff that was interesting. I liked hearing him talk about Matty Mock and James Franklin, 2 of some of the best Mizzou quarterbacks we've had in a long time.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised whenever he was talking about the Colt 45 play and how he was he just knew what he needed to do.
Ready to go.
He wasn't. I think I'd be deer in the headlights. You want me to throw this ball 50 yards to the end zone? But he was just in it, man. He was ready to go to battle, and I love his mentality and just the way he approaches the game, and he's an impressive guy.
Yeah, that was my takeaway from the whole thing was you don't always realize these guys are elite athletes and elite competitors, and they have that just competitive drive. And he talked about how many guys on those incredible Mizzou squads had that, just they all felt like they were the number one guy, but at the same time they were all willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the team. Mm-hmm. And that's just, you can only hope to have more than a few guys like that, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to make a season special.
I would assume that is rare.
Yeah.
That everybody knows their role, but also has that mentality of I'm number one at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that was awesome. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that. Hopefully that'll get the ball rolling on some more interviews. But I feel like I could interview Bud 3 more times and not get tired of it.
Yeah.
He was great. I think that's it for this week.
I think that's it.
All right.
All right, everybody. I forgot I had a job to do. I was like, all right, like this. All right, you can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com. Also, fantasy football.
Coming right up.
Deadline's August 31st.
Correct. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Brian Smith, Ryan Lee, Cooper, Tristan, and Ben Smith. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next week.